Preliminarily, tonight at about 8 p.m., my officers respond to a call of a shooting in the 1000 block of Paddington. When they arrived, they found 6 individuals had sustained gunshot wounds. 3 are deceased. The ages of the deceased range from their early 20s to about 50 years of age. We haven't established a firm motive yet. We've collected a lot of information. Still a very active and fluid investigation. Our detectives are on scene. We've gotten support from everybody from state police and other agencies at all levels of government until we can find out what this was all about and prepare a case possibly for prosecution. We do have a person of interest in custody. No charges have been filed at this time, but we do have an individual in custody, and we're characterizing him as a person of interest. So that's pretty much all we have at this time. We'll be working throughout the night. I also want to say that this was interpersonal dispute, so I want to assure the community that there's no public safety threat as a result of this unfortunate incident. So I'm going to turn it over to the mayor.
Well, sorry to be here on a Sunday night with this tragic situation. If you look around you, we're in a very middle-class neighborhood in Annapolis, Maryland. Tonight was an example of, yet again, senseless violence. People trying to resolve issues with guns. It is the most ridiculous thing that we can do as a society. We have to do things to stop this. Our department and all the departments that are helping us will work through the night to get to the bottom of this. We are saddened for the families, saddened for Annapolis that they have to deal with things like this, but pointing out that this sort of thing can happen anywhere and nothing gets resolved through the use of a gun. So, Chief.
I'll try to answer any questions that I can, but be mindful that we're not withholding any information. It's a very active and fluid investigation. We're still trying to determine everything that occurred. We're still piecing it together. We have a lot more work to do. My investigators, along with myself, will be working throughout the night, as the mayor said, and then we will be able to have more information in the very near future.
Chief, can you tell us what kind of weapon was used and how many rounds might have been fired?
No, we haven't determined that now. We're still investigating that. I do know we have a couple of weapons, the make and model. I don't have that right now, but we do have at least one weapon, at least one, maybe more, in our custody.
Can you say whether this was an exchange of gunfire?
Was this a graduation party, can you say?
I can't confirm that. Of course, that's some of the information that we received, but we're still trying to determine that. I don't want to say officially what this was about yet because it's still very early on. But of course, that was some of the things that's been said in the neighborhood, but we haven't confirmed it yet.
Can you say that this was domestic related? I mean, have you guys had prior calls to service to these addresses?
No, sir. John, this is it's a very, as the mayor said, a very stable community. This is unusual for this area. No area is immune. We're living in times now where the availability of handguns are plentiful right now. We have people who are willing to use them, but that's everywhere in this country. It's not unique to Annapolis. But to answer your question, we don't get very many calls of this nature in this area. Very unusual. And again, I have to say it again, there's no public safety threat as a result of this incident.
Chief, for clarity, did the shooting happen inside or outside the home?
Well, I don't want to get into that, but I will say that the victims died outside.
Was there an exchange of gunfire? Do you know yet?
We believe so, but that's not confirmed yet. We believe it was an exchange, preliminarily.
Chief, do you know what the relationship was with the deceased? Were they all one family member? Were they all related?
We're still trying to determine that. That hasn't been confirmed either.
Can you share how
known to the victims and suspects, do they know each other?
We haven't confirmed that either.
Was it random?
No, it wasn't random. It wasn't random, but the relationship between the suspects and the victims, we just don't know.
Can you share the 3 people that were shot and survived? Can you share their conditions, injuries?
We don't have conditions yet. They've all been taken to area hospitals. We can update you on that as soon as we get some information, but they all been taken to various hospitals in the area.
The 3 victims, they were all pronounced dead on scene, or was that one of them that was taken to shock trauma?
No, no, ma'am. The 3 victims were pronounced dead on the scene.
And they were all adults, Chief, correct?
All adults, yes, from their ranging in ages from their 20s through about their early 50s, as best we can tell.
Chief, we saw some children being led away. Were they in the house next door? Were they involved somehow?
Well, like these scenes, it's a nice night out. There were people out, so we don't know what that was about. Probably just people getting out of the area once the gunfire erupted. We know at least one house was struck.
Do you have genders on the victims? All males?
All males, yes, sir, all males.
Chief, can you let us know if the person of interest lived on the street?
We haven't determined that yet. I don't want to say yet we haven't determined that. We know he was here, but we don't know his residence at this time. But that'll be follow-up information.
Message to the community, Chief?
Well, the message to the community is that this wasn't a random act of violence. I can go on the record saying that it wasn't random. Unfortunately, like the mayor said, quite too often, or far too often, I should say, disputes are resolved by use of handgun. They turn deadly very quick. But again, it's not unique to the city of Annapolis. As most, if all of you know, this happens all over the country right now, and we just do our very best to prevent as much of it as we can and react to it very aggressively to bring the persons responsible into a court of law when it does occur.
To your knowledge, were there any calls for service to this home, like in the past couple of weeks?
I haven't confirmed any calls. Again, it's not a busy neighborhood. We have areas in the city of Annapolis that we frequently receive calls to. This is not one of them.
Is there any idea what this dispute could have been about that you mentioned?
I don't want to say at this time because that's still very early preliminary investigation. But we will at some point follow up and be able to say that. Again, this only happened a little over an hour and 45 minutes ago, so it would be premature to establish a firm motive at this time.
Chief, can you say you have the shooter? Can you confirm you have the shooter, or are they still at large?
Well, I'll characterize him as a person of we have a person of interest in custody, and we have a weapon and a person of interest.